Young and the Restless spoilers Fridays full January 16th, 2026. Victor had always believed that power once claimed could never be taken from him without the world collapsing in on itself. And so when the events of tomorrow's episode unfold, viewers will witness the precise moment the great man realizes that even he can stumble. Newman Enterprises, the empire built on his grit, ruthlessness, and unwavering certainty, now sits on a precipice because of a temporary but humiliating defeat at the hands of Cain and Phyllis, two people he once deemed insignificant in the grand scheme of corporate warfare. Yet their sharp timing, opportunistic strategy, and ability to exploit Victor's overconfidence have created the first crack in a foundation he once thought unbreakable. Even as the circumstances worsen, Victor refuses to negotiate with them, refuses to even consider allowing himself to that level. His pride is a fortress, impenetrable and rigid. And this refusal is not merely about business. It is the only way he knows to protect the persona he has spent a lifetime constructing. But Cain and Phyllis, particularly Phyllis with her fiery red hair and sharper than steel ambition, sense the magnitude of this victory, even if it is temporary. Phyllis will be itching to taunt him, to savor the moment she outmaneuvered the Titan who once looked at her as nothing more than a volatile nuisance. Her eagerness to boast is not just about revenge. It is about reclaiming her identity as someone who can outsmart the most powerful man in Genoa City. And as she prepares to revel in her moment, Victor is already crafting his counterstrike, refusing to let this be the final chapter. Newman Enterprises is not merely a company, but the symbol of his legacy, the lifeline of his family, the monument of his life's work, and he will not allow it to slip through his fingers. He will claw, fight, manipulate, and rebuild even from ashes if necessary. Because in his mind, failure is only a temporary state, never a permanent outcome. This internal resolve to reclaim what he has lost becomes the fuel of his anger, but also of his denial. And that denial will spill into his personal life the moment he returns home to Nikki. His confession of failure, even when wrapped in strategic language, will ignite not sympathy, but fury in Nikki Newman. She has always been his anchor, his mirror, and at times the only person capable of pulling him back from his worst impulses. Yet today she will question him not as a wife, but as someone exhausted by the chaos that follows him like a shadow when he reports what has happened and how his interference in the affairs of others has backfed Nikki's anger will ignite. She will argue that this never would have happened if Victor had simply stayed out of everyone else's business. If he had allowed problems to unfold without inserting himself as the ultimate puppeteer. Her priority is, and always has been, protecting the family, shielding it from scandal, instability, and destruction. But Victor's decisions driven by ego and obsession have placed all of them at risk. She is forced to question not only his judgment, but also how far she is willing to follow him into the storms he creates. Her love for him is tied to loyalty and history. Yet even she has limits, and his recent decisions push her to confront boundaries she has long tried to ignore. This conflict simmers beneath the surface of their Maria marriage built on resilience, survival, passion, but also mutual destruction. And tomorrow's episode will tear open the unresolved tension between what they want and what they can no longer tolerate in each other. While the Newman world is erupting in pressure and blame, across town, another emotional fault line will crack open when Tessa visits Sharon. Tessa, worn and strained, arrives with news about Mariah Copeland. And although the two women have shared countless moments of support, this conversation carries a different weight. Tessa's confession that everything has become too difficult is not a plea for pity, but a rare acknowledgement of emotional exhaustion. She loves Mariah deeply, but Mariah's recent actions driven by fear, protectiveness, and an inability to let Gahe push Tessa away in ways neither of them wanted to admit aloud. Sharon, ever the nurturing soul, will immediately sense the turmoil in Tessa's voice. She knows the complexities of love, hurt, and the ways trauma can make people cling to hard or let go too fast. Sharon loves Tessa as part of her extended family, but she also understands that Mariah's behavior has consequences. No matter how much love exists between them, emotional strain can fracture even the strongest bonds. Sharon will give comfort without false promises, clarity without judgment, acknowledging the truth that Mariah's need for contrast, especially after all she has endured, has created a barrier neither she nor Tessa knows how to break. This moment of quiet vulnerability juxtaposes sharply with the hurricane of conflict surrounding the Newmans. It highlights the emotional spectrum of Genoa City. On one side, a titan fighting to reclaim an empire. On the other, a fragile relationship struggling to survive the growing distance created by fear and unspoken pain. As Tessa opens up, she is forced to confront how much she can endure, how much she should forgive, and whether love alone is enough to pull them back to each other. Meanwhile, Sharon reflects on her own past, how love, fear, and loss have shaped her, and the advice she gives is grounded in empathy born from her own scars. She understands Tessa's ache because she has felt it, lived it, survived it. Their conversation becomes a delicate unraveling of emotional truths that cannot be ignored. All the while, Nick Newman, caught between loyalty to his father and his instinct to keep his family safe, begins to devise his own course of action. Nick is defined by his desire to break the toxic cycles that Victor perpetuates. Yet, he is never fully free from the gravitational pull of the Newman legacy. Tomorrow, he will make a decisive, even drastic move, one that reflects both his rebellion against Victor's methods and his determination to protect the people he loves. Nick's decision is the catalyst that will widen the divide between him and Victor, possibly creating a conflict that neither is prepared to face. It marks a moment where Nick steps outside his father's shadow to become a force of his own. But whether his choice brings salvation or destruction remains to be seen as the episode unfolds. Every character grapples with questions of identity, loyalty, and the limits of endurance. Victor battles the humiliation of defeat while plotting his inevitable comeback. Nikki questions how many more storms she can weather at Victor's side. Nick prepares to act not as Victor's son, but as a protector of his own household. Tessa wrestles with the weight of loving someone who is hurting but inadvertently causing hurt in return. Sharon stands at the center of emotional truth, offering understanding while knowing she cannot solve the problems for them. And Mariah, though not physically present, casts a shadow over every word Tessa speaks, her absence louder than any confrontation. All of this simmers beneath the polished, glittering surface of Genoa's City landscape, where power shifts like sand, loyalties are tested, and love is always on the brink of fracture. What tomorrow reveals is not merely a set of dramatic moments, but the beginning of new emotional battles that will reshape these characters in ways they cannot yet foresee. The real question lingering beneath every conversation and every decision is not who will win or lose, but who will survive the consequences of what they are about to set in motion. And as always in The Young and the Restless, the calm before the storm is never as quiet as it seems. Sharon's instincts, sharpened by years of surviving emotional chaos in Genoa City, allow her to see what Tessa herself is only beginning to accept. That right now, Tessa does not merely need reassurance, but support that feels immediate, steady, and grounded. Sharon understands that while Mariah remains emotionally unreachable, Tessa has quietly shifted toward the one person who has been able to sit with her pain without demanding answers. Daniel, this realization does not come with jealousy or judgment, but with concern, because Sharon knows how fragile Tessa is at this moment, how close she is to exhausted. When Tessa leaves, Sharon is left alone with an unsettling clarity. Love alone will not bring Mariah home. Waiting will not fix what is broken. And so, for the first time since Mariah pulled away, Sharon begins to consider the possibility that she cannot remain passive. Her maternal instincts take over, pushing her toward action. Sharon does not yet know where Mariah is or what state she is in. But she knows one thing with certainty. If no one actively searches for her, the distance will only grow wider. This quiet dike to begin looking for Mariah herself marks a subtle but powerful shift. Sharon is no longer just the emotional anchor for those around her. She is becoming the catalyst for whatever comes next, even if it means reopening wounds she has spent years trying to heal. Meanwhile, Tessa, still shaken from her conversation with Sharon, seeks out Daniel almost instinctively when she tells him about everything that was said. Her voice carries the weight of relief, mixed with fear. Relief that someone finally understood her without minimizing her pain, and fear that acknowledging how bad things have become makes the truth impossible to ignore. Daniel listens as he always does, without rushing to fix what cannot be fixed. His support is quiet, grounded, and deeply human. And that is precisely what Tessa needs in this moment. Yet, even as Daniel offers comfort, the situation surrounding Mariah lingers like a shadow over their connection, raising unspoken questions about boundaries, loyalty, and how far emotional reliance can go before it becomes something else entirely. While this emotional triangle simmers beneath the surface, another far more explosive confrontation is taking shape elsewhere in Genoa City. Newman, already strained by Victor's latest miscalculations and the fallout at Newman Enterprises, uncovers a truth that ignites a fury he can no longer contain. He learns that Jack Abbott has struck a deal with Victor regarding Matt Clark, a deal that alters the course of justice in a way Nick finds unforgivable. The realization hits him with brutal clarity. If Victor had not interfered, if he had not manipulated the system yet again, Matt could very well be behind bars where Nick believes he belongs. To Nick, this is not a gray area or a strategic compromise. It is a violation of moral boundaries that should never have been crossed. His anger is not just directed at Victor, but at the entire system that allows power to rewrite consequences. For Nick, this discovery becomes the breaking point. He has spent years trying to reconcile his love for his father with the damage Victor leaves behind. And now he sees the cost in stark terms. Matt's freedom is not an abstract concept. It represents danger, injustice, and a betrayal of everything Nick believes should matter. Fueled by this conviction, Nick decides he cannot remain silent or complicit. He chooses to confront Jack directly, not as a pawn in Victor's larger game, but as a man demanding accountability. When Nick approaches Jack, he does so with a rare mix of desperation and resolve. He pleads with Jack not to allow Matt to walk free again, not to prioritize corporate stability over public safety and moral responsibility. Nick knows that Jack's primary concern is protecting Jabao, and that reality forces a painful truth into the open. The only way to influence Jack may be through negotiation, compromise, and leverage. In that moment, Nick realizes the unthinkable threat to stop his father's interference. He may have to betray Victor himself. This internal conflict tears at him because Nick has always defined himself by loyalty. He has stood by Victor through scandals, wars, and moral catastrophes, often at great personal cost. But now, loyalty feels like complicity, and silence feels like endorsement. The choice before him is brutal. If he aligns with Jack to prevent Matt's release, he undermines Victor's authority and shatters the fragile unity holding the Newman family together. If he steps back, he becomes part of the very machinery he despises. This crossroads transforms Nick from a reactive son into an active force willing to fracture relationships if it means protecting what he believes is right. The ripple effects of this decision are enormous. Victor, already reeling from his loss of control at Newman Enterprises, will view Nick's actions not as principled defiance, but as outright betrayal. Nikki, caught between her husband and her son, will be forced to confront the reality she has long feared. That Victor's choices are pushing their family toward an irreversible split. And the rest of the Newman clan will find themselves pressured to choose sides, not based on blood, but on values. As these tensions escalate, Genoa City becomes a battlefield of competing priority. Esper versus justice, loyalty versus integrity, love versus survival. Sharon's search for Mariah represents the emotional cost of avoidance, the slow erosion that occurs when pain is left unrest. Tessa's reliance on Daniel underscores how fragile bonds can become when one person carries too much alone. Nick's bold move exposes the dangers of inherited power and the courage required to stand against it. And looming over all of it is Victor Newman, a man who has always believed that family is his greatest strength, now facing the possibility that it may also be his greatest vulnerability. The lines are being drawn not through dramatic declarations, but through quiet decisions that will reshape relationships long after the immediate crisis fades. In this unfolding chapter, no one emerges untouched. And the question is no longer whether conflict will erupt, but how much will be destroyed before anyone realizes what they have lost.